wash my soul in the ocean, in the tears of God, I let it go.
Hello my astrology friends, this is Lada from AstroladaOfficial and this is my 2023 astrology video, and as a tradition we end every year's astrology marathon with my personal observations of what is to come in the next year. Thank you so much for joining me. I think this video might be a bit long because there's so much happening. 2023 will be one of the pivotal years. As you probably all know, from 2020 till 2030 is one of the most dramatic periods of our lifetimes and for a long time in history, basically. So it's a bit of a roller coaster almost every year. But 2023, I can't compare it exactly as to 2020, but there is a lot of new things and surprising and out of the blue that will come, because years that are huge and change everything are years during which there is a lot of planets coming together in the same place, which we call conjunctions, like they're gathering together in the sky, like happened in 2020. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the nodes, and of course Pluto, 5 elements were there gathering together in the sky. So it kick-started the big reset, as they call it. And in 2023 we don't have conjunctions like that, but we have the other next in importance developments cosmically that make huge shifts and big changes, and that is planets moving signs, planets moving from one sign to another, and we're going to have 5 of those. First of all, Saturn will change its sign. We change the signs every 2.5 to 3 years. Jupiter will change sign, which is normal, it changes signs every year, but also the nodes will change sign, and which means the eclipses start happening in different signs and fated events change. This happens once every 1.5 years, but the biggest, most important event is that Pluto will change signs, which happens once every 10 to 20 years, depends where it's in the sky moving. So collectively and personally, this is to some extent great news, because a lot of old problems that we've been dealing with will be ended. So if you've been stuck on some situation for years, maybe decade or a few years, that you can't see a way out of, or that is just like obsessive, repetitive, the same thing keeps happening, the same problems, well, you start seeing a huge shift, because especially Saturn and Pluto changing signs, they're the most difficult planets in astrology, that shows the heaviest, most difficult karmas and lessons. So when they change signs, some consistent and persistent issues we've been having, they will disappear from our lives as well. But new areas to work on will appear, new areas that will grab our attention, demand our attention, and also make us a bit obsessive in that direction will appear. A lot of old problems are going away, so that's a great sign probably for a lot of you. So a lot of new beginnings. I cannot tell you how it will affect you personally, because it's a long time, so I'm not gonna talk about each of the 12 signs. If you want to listen to your sign, I've done 12 videos, 2.5 hours to 3 hours for each of the 12 signs. Make sure you check your ascendant sign first, then sun and moon. They're only $20, and this is my best work ever that I do every year. I've sold 50,000-60,000 of those over the years, so people keep constantly coming back on repeat to get them, because I really put everything I have. So there is a link below if you want to watch my personal horoscopes for your sign, but this will be more insights about the whole year collectively for the world, what to expect, not only this year though, because I'll speak about Saturn, so till 2026 you'll see what I'm predicting to be happening, and Pluto till 2044. So a lot of you might have to come back to this video over the years over and over to see the things that, and to see that we astrologers are not psychics. We just use symbology. We're interpreting symbologies, like reading signs basically, and it's nothing mystical. It's all a science, and I explain to you how it works, the logic behind it. I just need to know what signs and planets mean, and you combine the meanings, and there you go. So as you've seen, we astrologers have predicted many things, and I'll remind you some of the things over the last few years that I've predicted over this video. But let's start with, this year, a lot of new beginnings, 2023. There is a lot of fiery energy, but let's start with the most important first big shifts that you're going to start noticing is from the spring for the Northern Hemisphere. This is from March, because on the 7th of March, Saturn changes signs. And it will move from Aquarius, where it's been from April 2020, basically from the moment this pandemic started. You see, Saturn moved there around March, April 2020, April. So that's when the big shocks came for us. And that's when social distancing started, because Aquarius is about Saturn is about distance. Aquarius is social matters. And this is when the culture of cancellation happened as well, because Saturn is to cancel something, and Aquarius is society, so we started canceling people whenever. This is when heavy-handed censorship started happening, because Aquarius is free information flow, and Saturn is to stop something, is to cancel something, is to block something, or to regulate heavily something. Aquarius is freedom of speech. Aquarius is the sign brotherhood, equality, fraternity. And Saturn says, yeah, but no. Some people are more equal than others. Some people have more rights than others. Depends what level of society you are. So a lot of human rights were restricted. We were set for a higher reason, for safety. Saturn always restricts in the name of safety, for ihre Sicherheit, like they say in Germany. So for your own safety, Saturn will do that. What will Saturn do for your own safety when it moves in Pisces? But of course, Saturn also, it was another wave of the age of Aquarius that it ushered, which is, despite with heavy-handed ways, because Saturn did it through restrictions, through cancellations, through taking of human rights, through segregation and separation and isolation that we saw. This is very Saturnian quality, all those words in society. He did it through that, but that awoke a lot of people to try and find their own truth, because they could see that information is being suppressed, and they started looking for they started a lot of big awakening that happened in a bit of a painful way, which is Saturn. Saturn was just preparing the ground, though, because after Saturn comes Pluto in Aquarius. We'll speak about that. What can I tell you? Plus, Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn is one of the planets that symbolizes death. A little bit, we know that. Pluto is the higher octave of death, even more serious on a bigger scale. We saw, and Aquarius rules humanity, human numbers, demographics, society. Well, we saw, unfortunately, from 2021, in some countries up to 20% rise in death. That was a year and a half after the start of the pandemic. We started seeing, and in 2022, it's been the highest, when Saturn was all the time in Aquarius, the highest number of deaths that have happened in peaceful times. And our science is saying it's the result of COVID. Other people have other ideas. You decide what it is. Saturn in Aquarius, and Aquarius, basically, we're in the age of Aquarius already, is asking us to think independently, think for yourself, don't rely on authorities. Authorities is Saturn, and while Saturn was in Aquarius, we were told, don't think for yourself, rely on authorities to think. Because Saturn is authority, but Aquarius is like be independent thinker. So that forced some people even further to start thinking independently. Saturn in Aquarius had an incredible awakening influence. So I'm very grateful for that incredible change in society that started happening as well. But that was only the beginning. The real work of the change of society will be done by Pluto in Aquarius from 2023 till 2044. You will not recognize the world and humanity within 10 years already. Saturn just did the groundwork, like a testing, This is the energy of Saturn. Saturn is to test, to try, to prepare the ground. So we were cosmically and also by our amazing leaders prepared and tested the ground for the great reset socially, for the huge change that is about to happen in society, Aquarius, that Pluto in Aquarius will bring. But that showed a great awakening, that Pluto in Aquarius will deepen. It will be like a dam breaking and exploding, basically. It will be a very fascinating time. I'm so happy to be living in those times. I mean, wow, probably there was someone that said that all souls are trying to buy a ticket to be incarnated on Earth now, because these are the most important times from an evolutionary perspective for humanity. I'll tell you a bit after that when we get to Pluto. Let's move, because I have some very interesting esoteric knowledge. But let's move more what's going to happen when Saturn moves into Pisces from March 2023 till 2026. By the way, you see that Neptune is in Pisces. Now we're going to have Neptune and Saturn within 30 degrees, so 20 degrees, start in 2023, 2024, 2025, and they join together 2025 and 2026 together. They're in proper conjunction somewhere at the end of Pisces, the beginning of Aries. But it means that for the next 2.5 years, 4 years, they're very close to each other. And in astrology, it's been observed when Saturn and Pluto within 30 degrees of each other, which happens already from 2023, and the closer they get together, the more intense it gets. The closest together, 25, 26. It's been observed. If you check back, all the big important diseases that tend to happen then. That proper pandemics, I mean like the Spanish flu, it has a signature of plagues as well. Ones that, we're talking serious stuff here. I don't want to scare you, but it's a signature. It's even one of the astrologers that I work with, Victor, he checked back all the major, and I started checking them, and it's true, all the major big pandemics that happen in history, like plagues and stuff that properly, like half the people are gone or whatever. That happens always during Saturn, Neptune in hard aspect, or especially conjunctions. And Pisces is the sign of invisible germs and anything invisible. So I don't want to tell you that it's going to happen in 2023, but the closer they get together, especially 25, 26, there is a tendency, first of all, because Pisces is one of the signs of the immune system, so is Neptune, the planet of the immune system. Saturn starts suppressing that. And Saturn also means something controlled. And Pisces is germs, bacteria, invisible things like that, viruses, that might be controlled in some way. Let's see, we never know. But and Pisces also rules hormones. We'll speak about the health. Maybe let's see first, how will Saturn in Pisces affect the health of people? First of all, we have a video, if you watch the marathon, with a practicing medical astrologer and surgeon, Dr. Maria. She speaks in depth about Saturn in Pisces and who will be most affected and in what kind of ways. But I'll summarize you here. Pisces rules, wherever Saturn goes, it's always we get a lot of health problems connected to that sign. So when Saturn was in Aquarius, you can even check my previous videos where I say that there'll be a lot of nervous conditions. They've risen 10 times. That's 1000% statistically over the last 2 years. All nervous health issues, what is that? Like not only anxieties, but these are of the nervous system, like Alzheimer's, of the brain, because Aquarius rules the brain. Alzheimer's, the ones where you shake, I forgot the name of that. It's incredible. It's been 10 times rise of that. Unfortunately, I don't know, some of you know what it's coming from, others don't. Science tells us one thing. Everyone can feel the truth in their heart. Plus also, I thought I also went through the same. I was like, my nervous system was so attacked. It's my ascendant in Aquarius. I was getting panic attack after panic attack, and it was something with the nerves. And when I started taking the right supplements, everything went back, but to normal. But it does something, first of all, to the nervous system. Second of all, Aquarius is the capillaries, where the blood goes through. So the veins, the capillaries, where basically Aquarius rules all kind of system, like the nervous system that don't have a center. Well, the heart is ruled by Leo, which is the opposite sign of Aquarius. So while Saturn was in Aquarius, a lot of heart diseases, myocarditis and whatnot, you saw there's a rise like 1,000-fold in children, how many, 5-6 times more in adults, hearts, and of course strokes. Aquarius is strokes of the brain, and of course Saturn always affects the opposite sign, heart attacks, anything with the heart problems, which is Leo is the heart. So strokes, heart attacks, and nervous conditions, and anything of the Saturn, Aquarius and Leo rule the whole system of the blood with the heart and the blood being pumped into the veins. Sometimes people get cold hands and stuff like that. The blood can get, because Saturn constricts it, or constrictions of the arteries. And of course, we saw a lot of blood clots and things like that, they've risen. Like they're even saying it's normal now for kids to have strokes and heart attacks, which is not. Of course, it's never been normal in the history of humanity, but we saw something really, and of course Uranus was squaring from Taurus, Saturn, so it made it way worse. But from the moment Saturn moves into Pisces, the health issues will stop being on this axis, what we talked about. They'll become much more different now. And Pisces is the whole immune system. So that might become weakened now. So we need to be more organized, Saturn, to take care of our immune system. There are ways, of course. The most natural ways is take more sun, be more in fresh air, be more disconnected from electronics and all such kind of stuff, because they have strongly immune system suppressing influence of radiations and vibrations. And of course, a bit exercise, healthy eating. That's the only way you can strengthen your immune system. No amount of medication or anything will strengthen the immune system. Okay, but the other thing that Pisces rules is unknown stuff. So there'll be a rise in unknown diagnosis. People will not know what is wrong. Like the doctors, they'll be like, we cannot give a diagnosis. It's something new, or it's something mysterious, hidden. Another thing that we'll see is Pisces rules the fluids in the body, the lymph. You know what happens in the lymph? I'm not a medical person, but I've researched enough that the lymph is where and Pisces also rules intercellular fluids. So the liquids between the cells is also Pisces ruled, because Pisces is water and so on, and so is the lymph. So when a cell throws out toxic stuff, it throws them out in the liquid between the cells, and it gets moved into the lymph, that liquid. Well, Saturn is stagnation. So imagine this interstellar environment. Imagine the cells are like little lilies in a pond. But imagine when they throw out the toxic stuff from the cell, the pond becomes dirtier and dirtier, and there is no irrigation of the pond because Saturn stagnates, blocks, so it starts turning into mud. So imagine this intercellular fluids are getting more toxic. That's why the immune system gets very weakened. Saturn in Pisces energies, because there is more toxicity in the fluids of the body. And it's hard for the body to move this toxicity out, because Saturn is something doesn't move, it's frozen. So good things for you to do, and it's very good for immunity overall. When Saturn is in Pisces for the next 2-3 years, health-wise, is trampoline. Why is that? Because when your lymph is not moving, the liquids, which goes through sweating sometimes or whatever, the liquids in your body are not moving, and the jumping can help that, jumping. Another thing is through their special lymph massages, and if you can do that to get the things moving as well. If there's certain ways, plus drink more liquids. But Saturn in Pisces will require hot liquids, not cold liquids. So drink as much hot water as you can, maybe with a bit of salt so you're not peeing everything out. Because, as I said, Saturn stagnates the movement of the liquids in the body. So what is most important for you in that case is to get the liquids to flush out the toxins that are coming out, so it doesn't turn into a pond of mud, like I described to you, the intercellular things, and the lymph getting stagnant. And when the lymph is toxic, cancers, all such kind of stuff. So hot water, guys, this is a great remedy for that. Clean hot water if you can, because the warmth and the water start flushing out the toxins, and warm water acts much faster. Plus we want to counteract the coldness of Saturn, and we want to bring in from the waterness of Pisces. So with cold, warm, hot water, teas of any sorts, if you can do, that would be perfect, more of them. Another thing for Pisces is mental health. For health, when it comes, Pisces is the mental health. We're going to see problems there increasing, people becoming more aware of their mental health, like it's depression, psychosis, or sadness, and so on. So there will be a big emphasis on those things. Of course, addictions is Pisces. This problem of addictions can escalate to such an extent that it's on TV a lot more, that the government has to deal with it in some way, and they start putting certain very serious regulations on medications, on substances. For example, when Saturn was in Pisces, that's when LSD was made illegal in the 60s. But that's I don't know what kind of substances now, like they can make new substances that are more regulated, because Saturn is about something regulation of that, about mental health. And but at the same time, you have to be careful, because Saturn also indicates problems. Some people that already have mental health problems might have to reconsider changing their medications, or weaning off of medications, looking for different ways. Okay, so, and I also said that when Saturn starts getting closer to Neptune, I don't think it's going to be next year. I think we have a couple more years till they get closer, but there is a possibility for a proper pandemic this time, more serious this time. And I don't want to scare you. Okay? They're even saying, in the media, the people are saying, the scientists, they're saying, within a few years, a new one is coming. You don't even need to know astrology to know this is going to happen, but it might be very much regulated and controlled, or just kind of, just like the last one was created by humans as well. Maybe not by purpose it was released, but very much looks like so. And forgive me if I'm making assumptions, but this time Saturn Pisces is... That's why I tell you, for the next 2 or 3 years, really strengthen your immune system. Plus, it's really good when Saturn is in Pisces to quit bad habits. Nothing destroys your immune system as bad habits, especially when Saturn is in Pisces. It will be very hard to flush out the toxins from those bad habits. Is it smoking? Is it drinking? Is it any kind of other medications that poison more and more the liquids of the body? The environment of the body. And remember what Dr. Lipton says. He's incredible, and he says cancers and all kind of diseases, they are not hereditary. They are determined by the environment of the cell. What is the environment of the cell? The liquids that we talk about, again, Pisces. If the environment is clean, no diseases that are in your family will start. If the environment is not clean, if it's toxic, and it can become toxic by negative emotions, that's another influence of Saturn in Pisces. It can make you feel emotionally heavy, because feelings from the past that you haven't dealt with come to the surface, because Pisces is the deepest emotional sign, and especially it might be even connected to past life traumas that come, and fears and phobias and intense feelings about something that reawaken when Saturn is in Aquarius. So they become a problem, so you can deal with it and work through it over the next 2-3 years. And that's why I say also mental health issues can be increased, because emotions that you haven't dealt with in previous lifetimes, in this lifetime, they start creating problem now. They start even creating this more poisonous environment in your body. That's why I see a lot of people like going to psychologists and counselors, or even to psychic and healers during Saturn in Pisces. Because Pisces rules any kind of doctors, healers. They don't have to be, they can be alternative, they can be traditional psychologists, and looking for a solution, because it can feel like they're going a bit crazy. Pisces, the sign of losing it because of unprocessed emotions of some sort. Or also Pisces rules those things like phobias. Say you're afraid to enter into water and you don't know why. You never swim in or suddenly you develop claustrophobia, or suddenly you develop fears of, or you have irrational fears of geese. Or maybe geese attacked you in a past lifetime and gouged your eyes out, but you've forgotten. Sorry, I don't want to make light and fun of this, but there are weird things we can be fearful of without having experienced. So even if we experience something traumatic in this lifetime, maybe we forgot it, but now is the time when Saturn is in Pisces, when people start dealing with this, where you cannot postpone it anymore. Like I developed claustrophobia really badly, suddenly out of the blue. And Saturn in Pisces will help you, will push you, will demand that you cope with the hard. Saturn is to put hard work, not to expect miraculous healing suddenly. That doesn't happen with Saturn in Pisces. What happens there is you put the efforts. Maybe you go to cognitive therapy, that they reprogram your mind. Maybe you do past life regressions. Maybe you read psychological books. Maybe you explore the mystical and think and become introspective a lot more and think about the past. Maybe you start even remembering suppressed memories from past lifetimes or early childhood, and starting to understand why certain intense feelings or traumas or phobias or self-sabotaging behaviors like addictions or other self-sabotaging behaviors. Why do you always trip yourself when you enter in a relationship? Why do you always sabotage your relationships? Why do you always sabotage your new jobs or whatever? Or friendships. Everyone has some vices, some addictions, and self-created sabotages, and they're not conscious of them, and they don't understand why they do it repeatedly, because it's in the subconscious. It stems from past lifetimes and so on. And Saturn there in Pisces will make us all collectively think over such things. That's why I said mental health can feel like you're going crazy during this period, but it's also such issues are pressing to the surface of the conscious. And you're thinking, why am I feeling so weird? Why am I having those fears and phobias? Why am I going crazy? Well, it's to work through those things and cleanse them. Because the ultimate work of Saturn is described in ancient astrology as the cleaner, the servant, the slave. So, and in the body, Saturn rules also those little parts of the body that clean all kind of dirt in the body. That's why if you have a strong Saturn, usually you can have a longer life. Saturn on an angle, exalted, whatever, because your body gets rid of dirt better, the cleansing part of the Saturn. That's why Saturn is longevity, because if your body can get rid of the dirt easily, aging, death happens, and so on. So I, start working on your immune system. Maybe a lot of you start working now on getting rid of negative addictions. And many times addictions have root in feelings and past life situations or early life that are forgotten. You don't necessarily need to understand why or remember some traumatic event. It's not always the case, but it is enough to start consciously focusing on that. So Saturn will also give you the willpower, let's say the self-determination, set on something and doing it step by step, and using repeated effort to cope with self-sabotaging behaviors, to cope and remove addictions. And I'll see a lot, I'm sure a lot of people will stop smoking. It will be easier while Saturn is in Pisces, because actually addictions have really increased in the last 10 years. Why is that? Because Neptune entered Pisces from 2012. And a lot of the opiate addictions and so on started exploding around that time, because Neptune removes barriers. It's the rule of the sign of Pisces. It brought a lot of great stuff like spirituality exploding and so on, but there was no regulation, no ability to self-regulate any kind of vices, you know, because Pisces is the hidden addictions we have, the hidden vices. It can be to porn, to sex, it can be to foods, it can be to drugs of any sorts or substances that change the state of consciousness, at least temporarily, because Pisces is, you know, you're wanting to transcend and connect to some bigger, higher feeling, and we tried oftentimes a pill or a porn video, whatever, can give us this temporary transcendence. Well, Neptune removed a lot of barriers and the ability to self-regulate on that, so addictions exploded. So to a great extent, Saturn moving in Pisces has a really good side. First of all, not only the governments will be forced to deal with that, with addicted people that are also victims of mental health problems, because they'll become unavoidable now. They'll become so big that the government will have to step in, and big institutional organizations to provide something there. That's what they'll be doing for the next 2-3 years. Watch the news, you will see there's a big emphasis on that because a crisis is happening. Plus, it will help us personally to self-regulate our behaviors that addictive, that self-sabotaging, these Neptunian tendencies to escape reality. Plus, I see some such drugs that help with mental health, like microdosing of mushrooms, and there is certain, you know, very Piscean medicine that will be regulated and approved, but in small portions, because Saturn is something small. To do it by piecemeal, like mushrooms, LSD, and such kind of hallucinogenic, but not to the state that you're, but to the state that it helps you deal. I've been reading more and more people saying I'm microdosing mushrooms or I'm microdosing MDMA or whatever. They're starting to approve it in many places where you don't feel high at all. You just don't feel depressed. You just don't feel obsessed with your addiction, that you need to watch a porn or that you need to light that cigarette. And a lot of people stop bad addictions. And of course, mental health problems and addictions are always hand in hand. When you see addictions, there's always mental health. It is mental health issues. So I see these painful things becoming way more painful now, to the extent that we have to deal with them. But I see great strides, gradual, slow, but great strides again by 2026 that have been achieved with mental health, new medicine, or new microdosing, already existing medicine that can help us deal better with depressions and such kind of addictions and so on. And the government, maybe regulation of those substances and so on. And the government will start paying more attention seriously and what to do with people that have mental health issues, because it's escalating. There is no, like, Saturn is in Pisces. I'm sorry, this is what's going to happen. Now let's move a little bit from health. Maybe you're bored with that topic. I got bored with it. Another thing that Pisces and Saturn on the axis of Pisces and Virgo rules, this is the axis of, this again, sounds exactly about health, but the medical field. Saturn, Pisces is hospitals, Virgo is big pharma, Pisces is also all drugs. The people will demand, or the government will have to start regulating the creation of drugs more. This is what Saturn is. And maybe they'll start realizing certain medicine were approved too quickly, and there will be a demand to look through and to see, and what I see will happen is that there will be a lot of punitive measures. Saturn is punitive, of the medical industry, of the pharmaceutical industry. Till now, it was blossoming. You know, it's till now the pharmaceutical medical system. It's, they fuck up with the medicine, pay a few million here, there, carry on, next drug approved. It's not going to be the case. I think there'll be an outcry of people saying you cannot approve, like FDA, whatever, those regulatory, because Saturn is regulatory. There'll be also a big kind of like pay time of the regulatory institutions like FDA or CDC or whatever it is called. In different countries that approve of medicine, whatever. So there'll be an exposure of certain malpractices or rushed practices for approval of medicine of any sort. There might be court cases being sued, you know. And I think there will be punitive measures for big pharma. in a big way, big pharma having to pay off in a big way something. Because Saturn is the planet of karma. Karma is coming back to medical malpractices, to doctors, even people that are personally involved in any kind of medical malpractices, medical negligence, and the demand for more testing of substances before they are approved. Till now, while Neptune is in Pisces, it's, oh, whatever comes, let's approve another 100 vaccines for kids to the age of 1. Let's approve anything, Neptune is like green light, and Saturn says red light. Okay, now let's see who we're gonna shoot for that. I'm sorry for being graphic like that. So there will be some heaviness also on the medical system. Hospitals might be closing down, or there might be not enough medical workers and doctors, nurses, because Pisces Virgo accesses. That's exactly. There might be the need to restructure the medical system in some way and to reorganize it. I think it actually, when Pluto was in Virgo, they started with Medicare and whatever, Obamacare or something like that. But now there will be again the need to change something in the medical hospital systems as well, with regulations, with the medical practices as well. Plus also the doctors and medical staff might feel even more regulated than other times, or being told what to do, turning into employees rather than being allowed to make their own decisions, because Saturn is some kind of control, that they're told what to do and what not to do. Hospitals closing down, exposing the mistakes and negligence of medical system, but also some kind of documentation of medical records that comes out, some information that comes, that is as a consequence of previous actions of those fields, medicine, pharma, and so on. All right. On another level, Pisces also rules anyone that is, the so-called people that are disenfranchised in society, the addicted, the unemployed, those on the poverty level, those that are sick, that are poor, that are injured, people that the system has to take care of. Well, there's a crisis that's happening when Saturn is in Pisces with such people. There is the need to pay more attention to such people. Maybe their numbers have increased. Maybe their numbers they'll increase to such level that the system will have to pay attention. And there is, it might be people that injured from wars, people that are also refugees is Pisces, people that are running from one country to another, people that it's in some kind of a state, that is less than optimal, victimhood, the sick, the poor, the injured, the unemployed. First of all, there will be a crisis with unemployment, because that's what Saturn is, redundancies. Saturn can do that, and the government will have to deal with that. Pisces also rules social services that deal with the unemployed, with the sick, with the people in need, with the disenfranchised, with the orphans. Pisces rules orphans. Pisces rules immigrants of any sorts. So you see, when Jupiter was in Pisces, the number of those people increased. I mean, talking about immigration, I don't know, I live in Europe for a year and a half. It's been crazy, the waves of immigrants coming to England, to Western Europe, and the borders are open, and it's been creating. But for now, with Jupiter in Pisces, thankfully they were found accommodations and everything like that. But when Saturn comes, there'll be a crisis that happens with immigrants or refugees of any sort. So people or the governments will start closing down on that, or will start trying to put some regulations around that. And I think even borders can close down over the next 3-4 years, 3 years while Saturn is in Pisces, or some kind of regulation process that can be imposed. A lot of dissatisfaction and a lot of cry out from people, and showing the problems of displacement of others. When large groups of people are moved around, which is what Pisces is, there is displacement of others, and there is those people in vulnerable positions, they're being a lot of times immigrants, they're being taken advantage of badly. There is human trafficking that happens, and such kind of stuff. I think a lot will be understood about those things, and something need to be done and will be done with Saturn in Pisces. But crisis in unemployment, crisis with refugees, crisis with injured, sick people, with for medical malpractices as well, or any kind of health issues. It's Pisces that are incapacitated, that are unable to take care of themselves. The numbers will be so big that there will be a big pressure on social services and such kind of charitable organizations. Plus, if there is any malpractices in in services about adoption of children, dealing with orphans, dealing services that they're usually NGOs that are dealing with immigrants, that are dealing with drug addicts, that are dealing with unemployed, their dirty shirt will be shown to the surface as well. They'll have some punitive measures or some crisis or some scandals around such activities, and also there will be the need for to be created more and more such organizations to take care of those in need. So I see such kind of a humanitarian crisis, as they call it, and a charity crisis, and the need to help others more, because the issues that such people in need, which is very much what Pisces is, will really escalate. So there might be they need to develop, and a workable plan will be developed to deal with those issues. And let me give you an example. For example, in 1935, the Security Act in USA to support those struggling was created, which is when Saturn was in Pisces again. So it's like having pensions for the elderly, or having those that are sick and can't take care of themselves, or unemployed. This is what the Security Act is about. Those that can pay their medical bills, so the Saturn in Pisces can do something very good, some workable, practical steps for those people in need, because they're escalating, their numbers are becoming big, and their voices will be heard with Saturn in Pisces. Another year was 1964 till 67, when Saturn was in Pisces again. That's when Medicare and Medicaid was established in the States. That was free or a free medical system for those in need. So again, big hopes that people that are in need health-wise, or who are without job, or who are in very compromised situation of some sort, in victimhood state, there will be certain steps taken to take care of them. Plus, I'm quite certain that will be the start of something that's called basic income, the spirit of Saturn in Pisces, corresponding with Pluto in Aquarius as well. That will transform society, Pluto in Aquarius. But of course, also it will help a lot of people that are at the bare minimum, and just so they don't have to think about survival all the time when Saturn is in Pisces, because it's the Security Act and Medicare, Medicaid was created during Saturn and Pisces to take care of those that are really in difficult situations. And of course, that can be also used as a means of control. But we'll talk about that when we get to Pluto in Aquarius. But it will do good to a lot of people. Collectively it might be a bit, but individually there will be a lot of good that comes to people individually from that. Let's go to Saturn in Pisces again. What is Pisces? Another thing that Pisces rules is karma. So does Saturn. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Pisces rules the ending of a cycle. That's why sometimes really very extreme things can happen during Saturn in Pisces. Because this is when you're reaping the karma, sometimes really good stuff as well, depending how a person has lived the last 30, 27 years of their life. And we're talking here collectively for society. Those areas of society, those organizations that have been doing a good job, they can really have the great results, while others, as we call it, the chickens come to roost, seeing the consequences of your past actions. And this is when, you know, a lot of endings happen. Saturn in Pisces is the sign of endings. But that's why I told you one of the best things during Saturn in Pisces for the next 2-3 years, you'll see a lot of programs being developed, a lot of people naturally quitting bad habits, bad behaviors, leaving behind bad psychological patterns. But a lot of endings when Saturn is in Pisces that are preparing us for, there'll be some really serious new beginning when Saturn joins with Neptune at 0 degrees Aries in 2026. That's when that's when it gets really interesting. Like Victor said in our video about Saturn in Pisces, this is a preparation for the whole year 2020. This is a preparation for 2026 that is starting now. So prepare, Saturn asks you. Strengthen your immune system, quit bad habits. It's a little bit introspective, go within and find out what are the issues emotionally and get released from those. But it's karma of the previous 28 years. Many karmic events out of control, which we have to bear the cross of with humility and acceptance. The stupidity of the previous few years, of the financial system, of the medical system, of everything, whatever wrong decisions were taken now, the closing of society, maybe now we'll see the consequences. And that's when you pay the piper, as they call it, when Saturn is in Pisces. So it's also Pisces, the sign of expenses, and Saturn is there. Now you'll see the results, guys. Well, let me tell you, we're still on the verge of the age of Pisces and Aquarius. Every 2,100 years, 2,100 years, the constellations change on the eastern horizon on the spring equinox. The constellations are used for determining huge epochs of 2.5 years. And we use for everyday events and world events prediction the tropical zodiac, which is another zodiac which is the same 12 signs but is more personal to the earth. But for the big events, we look at the constellations, and for the last 2,000 years, we've been in the constellation of Pisces, the spring equinox. And that's been probably the toughest years of humans' history, because the energy of Pisces was about paying off a karmic debt. And it was very much about bear the brunt, put your head down and be humble. And lives were very short. 30 to 40 years was the normal lifespan. Thankfully, from around 100 years ago, we started the dawn of the age of Aquarius. So you see, age has expanded with 30, 40 years more, because the age of Aquarius is when humanity will reach, over the next 2,000 years, 2,100 years, way longer lifespan and so on. But I just wanted to show you because we're talking about Saturn in Pisces, and how the past 2,000 years have been very hard for humanity, because it was the age of Pisces. We were paying off karma of a sort. We were bearing our cross. And of course, Christ, consciousness in Christ, has been the symbol of the age of Aquarius. His symbol is also the Pisces, the fish of Christians, where we have to pay off basically a lot of karma as humanity. And that's why Christ said, I'm coming here to take your, sins. That's Pisces is very much connected to the sin thing. Well, sin is nothing but karmic consequences. So it's kind of this age of Pisces that Christ being ushered sped up the karmic process of paying off for the sins, and of course alleviated it, because the Christed being energy merged with the earth, so we don't have to pay the full karmic of our actions collectively. But still, so now Saturn in Pisces does such mini cycle for your personal life, but collectively for a planet, we're going to see a lot of things dissolving, and out of circumstances, out of our ability to control them. But because we've done this, collectively, other organizations, whatever, the governments, because Saturn rules the whole society, the mistakes will be shown and certain corrections will have to be done. So it can be tough time, Saturn in Pisces, collectively, karmically. Another thing that Pisces rules is water. And I checked back my God, many times when Saturn was in Pisces, there were big water crisis and floods and dams breaking. I checked astrologically, and sometimes like big tsunamis even and floods. So we're a bit in danger because Pisces is the water element, and dams breaking and stuff like that. Poisoning of water, something to be careful of. You know, it is Pisces. Lack of water. Now Saturn is to constrict, to make something less than. Some kind of crisis will be generated that is about water is not enough, and it will become such a big theme in the news, and a lot of important decisions will be taken based on this lack of water. I also checked, this is when some of the biggest dams were created, when Saturn was in Pisces, like in the 60s and then in the 90s, some of the hugest dams. So I can imagine people creating and using water as some new source of energy, and really putting focus on water as a source of energy over the next 2-3 years, maybe creating huge dams or something else that utilizes water in some way. Harnessing water. Saturn is to harness something, to put it in control. We'll do this through water, so some very good stuff as well through Saturn in water. Pisces is one of the signs about mobility. As I said, it's very much about immigration, moving here, there. Well, whilst Jupiter was in Pisces, we saw the restoration of traveling. There was more immigration, that people started, immigrants in Europe and in the States a lot more. People started moving more freely again. But now Saturn comes in one of the signs of travel and crossing borders. And I see some barriers coming up over the next 2-3 years, more regulations, so some kind of special passports, because this is what Saturn, some documentation or passport to be able to travel, some kind of legitimizing or kind of government involvement and say in who can travel and move freely over long distances. Plus also some control, as I said, of immigration of some sort. But lack of mobility is one of the things, because mobile, mutable sign, Pisces, crossing. But another thing that I've noticed with Saturn in Pisces from previous times is xenophobia. Blockage in crossing boundaries, sometimes due to xenophobia. When Saturn was last in Pisces, not last, but before that, from 1964 to 1967 was when Ku Klux Klan did a lot of multiple murders. Because Pisces is someone who's foreign, someone who's different than you in any way. Pisces means the unknown. So of course before it was like, well, black people are different, they're unknown to us. So there was a lot of, Saturn is hatred, so it can create a lot of hatred. And Pisces rules foreigners, people from different cultural backgrounds, skin, religion, anyone who is different than you. And Saturn can increase this hatred and xenophobia, or hatred towards other religions. So we've seen some of the worst kind of crimes against others that are different than us, based on religion, based on color, based on whatever it is, during Saturn and Pisces periods. As I said, Ku Klux Klan happened, that xenophobia, there was a lot of xenophobia, but that's also when a lot of progress happened and people being dissatisfied and crying out loud because of being segregated. Because they're different in some way. So this was also the time when there was the abolishment of racial segregation and the Civil Rights Bill came to America. So you see, it's almost like both the good of a planet in a sign and the bad are strongly emphasized. So the bad is this xenophobia towards people that are different to us. People that are different religiously or color or whatever, or from different country, different habits, whatever. So it intensifies. We'll see this growing. But at the same time, we'll see that this brings in this escalating pressure, requires governments or authorities, which is Saturn, to intervene and to decide and to basically they abolish the segregation, civil rights. There is equal resistance. Like if one side pushes like that, the other one will, So if there is this escalating xenophobic, foreign, negative feelings as well, there will be something introduced to regulate, to give more rights, but in a lawful way to such people. And so hopefully there will be a good advancement for against sexual and religious segregation, but unfortunately it will happen because of a crisis. It will happen because of really intensified hatred between such different religious or cultural groups that it can create. And of course, there was many massacres during Saturn in Pisces. Ooh, I'm such a bringer of great news. One of them was the Rwanda genocide. I think because of different religion or between there were different tribes and they killed. It's like Saturn, Pisces is compassion and feeling for another, and Saturn can suppress that, and human can turn a little bit more. I don't know, not all humans, of course, but certain sectors can turn less compassionate. So that was the Rwanda massacre, genocide, the Serbian and Bosnian massacres, where because of religion, two people that lived together, neighbors, they were one country, they killed each other. It was crazy because of religious differences. So I'm worried there might be some escalation of religious problems. I think there will be some big change happening in religions, like restructuring of religions. Maybe the one world religion, they're talking about that, going in that direction. There'll be the next step done in that direction. Remember, even if you're against that, God always uses everything created for the highest good eventually. Just sit and observe the show, basically. There might be a religious crisis, reformation of churches, or antagonism between different church sections. Just watch out in the news something about religions and sects, some kind of developments with sects that happen, and even cancellation of faith and certain things, cancellation of certain churches or certain regulations of churches or banishment or kind of there might be attack on beliefs of people as well. For especially more traditional religions like fundamentalist Christianity might be on the spot for something, but also there is a tendency for people to return to more traditional religions and belief systems. I'm not saying it's all bad, it's all fundamentalist. The world was made in 6 days. Well, there are some truths you can find there, but usually people go back to the ancient or more ancient versions of their religions as well to explore. But there might be a canceling or push to cancel Christianity because Pisces is very much Christianity thing, or to remove it from school, or to remove it from, or maybe some kind of punitive measures on churches and so on. But also Pisces rules our spirituality. So there might be some regulations on everyone working in spiritual fields like me, maybe some kind of cancellation again culture, or something about regulations of the psychic business, the business of healing, alternative healing as well, the business of mediums and so on. There might be some crisis there or restructuring. But there was some good stuff that happened when Saturn was in Pisces. Last time, for example, when Saturn was in Pisces, there was New Age spirituality became more and more mainstream, because Saturn is something that is common, that is familiar to everyone. So even the average Joe can turn to that. And when it becomes more and more present in the eyes, such kind of spiritual themes like Pisces, into the eyes of even the average Joe, that's when government intervenes, usually, to put some regulations to protect, people for their own security. Sometimes it's good because they can be, Pisces is a very tricky sign. People in those fields can always trick you. I mean, healers, astrologers, who keeps us accountable, and they can be, sometimes when it becomes very common everywhere, mainstream, which is Saturn is mainstream, it wants to make spirituality and such things more mainstream, but also some regulations usually get put there, some cancellations, some kind of, because some crisis or scandal happens of some sort. Pisces is also cult movements. And it's not necessarily cult in religions always, because Pisces rules the arts, Pisces rules the film industry. Pisces rules anything that is, you use your imagination to create new worlds or whatever. So it uses the gaming industry, it rules the film industry, anything that you escape reality with. the film industry, the gaming industry. Nowadays, I would say even Netflix, because they create new realities. And it is the porn industry. We said regulations maybe in the porn industry are coming. And maybe the dark underbelly of the porn industry is showing, and people like putting more emphasis that how damaging porn is. I can tell you a personal experience watching porn, like avoid it if you can in any way, because it's a very hard addiction. Thankfully for the last 6-7 years I've been free from that, but just playing with such dangerous things, you know, they can suck you in. Any addiction, lighting a cigarette now and then can suck you in. I've gone through all the addictions possible. So I've escaped that little by little. It's so hard to get yourself out of those. So, I mean, it's ridiculous that some schools now are advocating for kids to check porn and to watch it, because it's like throwing your kids into the hands of, I don't know, of the devil, and thinking that they're clever enough and strong enough to extricate themselves from that. But I think there will be certain regulations and awareness of the damages of any addictive behaviors, as we said, especially porn and so on, and the film industry as well. There will be some regulations, more control over those things. But there's some great things that happen as well in the film industry, in the imaginative industry. Also for gaming, there might be more regulations, but also the next step can be taken in gaming, because when I look back, when Saturn was in Pisces the last time, there were great advancement in CGI and groundbreaking CGI for Jurassic Park. That was the first movie that I went, was like, wow, it looks real, because Pisces is to take something that's to make an illusion, and Saturn is like perfecting the trade there. Saturn is mastering it. So the next level in CGI is in graphics, in computer gaming over the next 3 years. I mean, I think that's when the metaverse, whatever, will really to create an illusionary world. And dabbled with Pluto in Aquarius, which is development of technology, and Pisces, which is the visual part, Saturn in Pisces, which is the creating of the world, spinning of illusions. Whoa, we'll be at next level. Fascinating stuff, very addictive as well. I mean, if it mimics reality so much, who knows? Then the next, and also there was cult movies that appeared. I mean, something that became cult when Saturn was in Pisces. Pulp Fiction, Jurassic Park was a cult movie for me. Interviews with the Vampire, Forrest Gump, and the topics that cinema takes into the movies are more thought-provoking, deeper, more metaphysical, because Saturn is the philosopher. Saturn is the deep-thinking philosopher, something that makes you think. More powerful, impactful as well, and more serious kind of arts, and you know, but also expect something spectacular visually as well, perfecting the depth. Of course, Pisces is the music industry as well. Last time, I think around the time of Jurassic Park and Forrest Gump and so on, was the grunge culture musically. The previous times was rock and roll, 64, 67. I think something important with music will be happening as well. Neptune has been already there in Pisces, but Saturn will give it more structure, will make it more mainstream. I believe that a lot of new musical trends have developed over the last 10 years, but they're still not mainstream. They're still accessible to very few people that have to dig and look for those styles, but they'll come to the mainstream now with Saturn and Pisces. Also, there'll be something about the music industry that is more regulated, and that it in some way, there can be some restrictions there, or some advancement. Again, Saturn can make advancements to make inclusion in the music industry of the more normal people as well. Hopefully that's the highest manifestation I'm hoping for. New ideologies. Oh my God. New ideologies. When Saturn and Neptune somehow connect together, and they'll be in the same sign, and Saturn is in the sign of Neptune, new ideologies appear. And usually they're a bit more on the communist side, and they're a bit more on the socialist side. And I'm not saying this is bad. The idea of communism and socialism is incredible, but it suppresses individual rights very often. And there is, for example, communism was created when Saturn was in Pisces. fascism was, so China will be having its third Saturn return. China became communists. Sorry, communism was not created when Saturn was in Pisces, sorry, but was created by someone, Karl Marx, with Saturn and Pisces connection, Saturn and Neptune connection, but China became communist when Saturn was in Pisces, and it will be its third Saturn return. So there will be, in the previous Saturn return, China restructured itself, and about 27 years ago. So now will be another stage of China. Some big change will be happening of China, some big maturation stage. It will be challenging for China as well, but it will be coming into maybe more power, whatever. But I thought for China might very likely collapse or really change around the end of the century, because I've done a lot of posts on Facebook about that. Follow me there, because I don't always post everything on YouTube as videos. When Saturn will have Neptune opposition, Saturn return, and so on. Quite a few things. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they all activate the chart. But something important there with China. But communism, communistic collectivism traits. Plus fascism, for example, was created with Saturn conjunct Neptune, 35 to 38, 1935 to 8. Fascism was growing in popularity. So kind of such extreme ideologies started forming around that time. They're not necessarily new ideologies. They're not necessarily bad always, because it can always be used at the lower vibration, like fascism and communism was, and it can always be used at the higher vibration to new ideologies that transform humanity. All right, Pisces is also spending, but Saturn there can make a blockage a little bit, so people will be spending less, for sure, renouncing the distractions of the world. Saturn in Pisces is a very sannyasi combination. Sannyasi is to renounce, a spiritual development combination. Actually, in Vedic astrology, you have Saturn in the 12th house, or strong Pisces, or whatever. Or Saturn in Pisces is one of the combinations for spiritual liberation or spiritual growth, because one renounces the distractions of the world and focuses on a spiritual practice. So that will be great stuff if you want to have spiritual practice, more introspective. That can happen during Saturn, and having more follow through and more discipline. This is Saturn, and in any spiritual practices. All right, spiritual cults can happen. Maybe I should start one. Who knows? All right. Another thing, literature, of course, is always influenced by Saturn in Saturn's movements, and I can tell you there's some great stuff actually. Last time Saturn was in Pisces, Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter book, was out, and previous times Saturn was in Pisces, The Hobbit was created. So such kind of big epic mysteries, epic Harry Potter, The Hobbit. Maybe a new such one is coming, all right, more mystical literature and art that is deep, that's thought-provoking. All right. Let's not squeeze any more out of Saturn in Pisces. I think we covered a lot. I'll do another video for Saturn in Pisces towards February, where I'll speak about each of the 12 signs. Maybe we'll regurgitate some of those topics as it's coming closer. Now let's move to the other big event that's happening in 2023. That will be Pluto entering Aquarius. Since 2008, Pluto has been in Capricorn. Remember when it first crossed in Capricorn, 2008, exactly within a few days was the financial crash happened. So Pluto's ingress is in a new sign, which happens very rarely, over 10, 15 years, always brings something huge. So even though Pluto will be in Aquarius just for a couple of months in 2023, just the mere fact that it's crossing that boundary, it's like an earthquake a bit. So I expect something big happening this year, especially in the couple of months that Pluto is in Aquarius. But because it will pass twice a boundary, Pluto, so there are two periods to watch out for. In March and April, when Pluto is crossing the boundaries between Capricorn to Aquarius, and then around June, July, when Pluto is crossing back into Capricorn. So 2 times the boundaries cross, which is powerful. And I think when Pluto crosses back into Capricorn, there will be big things happening in governments, big figures in big positions, governmental or positions of hierarchical positions, CEOs and so on, in big corporations. That's huge news is happening around that time, and such also revealing of secrets of something dirty, underhanded. Actually, Pluto has been doing this progressively over the last, since 2008, 14 years. The moment it entered Capricorn, people started less and less to believe anything Capricornian, which are institutions that we've always started, banks, stock market, we started the government started bailing out banks and so on to keep the old institutions working, and people, and Pluto in Capricorn revealed so many dirty things of government. One of you here will raise their hand that they trust without any reservations their governments or big institutions? No one. Pluto destroyed the credibility of people in power, because Pluto always reveals the dirtiest secrets of something, always reveals the mishandling of something. It comes to the surface, and we still have the biggest part of 2023. Pluto is in Capricorn, and because it increases back, we have it's like a last year where a lot of revelations about the dirty things of people in power, people at the top of the pyramid, which is what Capricorn is, will be revealed. Some scandals, toppling down of figures in power happens during that time because of something shameful they've done, because of something like if they've abused power. This happens many times and the old institutions are slowly dying out, guys. The ones that have been pillars for society for the last 200 years, since the last time Pluto was in Capricorn, they are dying. It's their last push, and as always, when it's someone's last push, they become more and more draconian. Actually, Pluto has been, since it's entered Capricorn from 2008, and especially it ramped up in 2020 when Pluto joined a lot of planets in Capricorn. It's that those in power, which is Capricorn, in the government's high positions, first of all realize that there is a dark government, or people in power behind the governments that tell them this is Pluto. Pluto rules the richest, very small, invisible number of groups. Pluto is invisible, just like we can't see it. It's the smallest planet, but it has the most concentrated power. So it's like probably 20, 30 or 7 families in the world. 20, let's say a few thousand people tops that are the dark government, and now everyone knows about that. Even go to Kamchatka somewhere, and someone who lives in an igloo, they'll know, the dark government, the government behind the government. Everyone knows now. It's no longer a secret. This Pluto reveals those things. But as I said, how does the revealing happen? Because Pluto intensifies the desire for power of the people that are ruled by the sign it passes. So Capricorn in power. So they started putting even more extreme restrictions and control, and very extreme manifestations of control and power that we've seen, and abuses of power, so to speak. And this is of the, Capricorn rules institutions, governments, and banks. And what happens? Of course, the Scorpion not always, but destroys itself. Like Pluto is Scorpionic in energy. The more abuse of power, the most draconic, extreme behaviors, the more the evil reveals itself and destroys itself, like the Scorpion stinging itself to death. I don't think it's a real process, but it's one that we all know about, the Scorpion stinging itself to death. So that's what those organizations and so on are doing as well. And when Pluto comes back to Capricorn around the summer, I think there'll be like a last desperate attempt, and even taking more control and power, and revealing of such kind of darker and mispractices in higher levels. But what about Pluto in Aquarius, which happens on the 23rd of Aquarius? For a couple of months, Pluto will give us an indication of what's to happen, and then it comes back to Aquarius 2024, stays there till 2044. So what I'm going to talk about Pluto in Aquarius is not necessarily, you're not going to see it in 2023, but you'll come back to that video in the next 20 years to see how little by little what I'm talking about is unfolding and it's happening. And again, I'm not psychic, I'm just using the symbology of those signs. And the first thing that I did is, of course, checked when Pluto was in Aquarius in previous ages and previous times. And don't forget that the previous times Pluto has been Aquarius in the last 2000 years, I checked them all. What happened then? We were the age of Pisces. But now when Pluto is in Aquarius, will be the age of Aquarius as well. So we have a huge Aquarius wave coming. It already, the age of Aquarius started from last centuries, 100 years ago, the dawn of the age. We have 2,200 years ahead of us of that, or something like that. So we're just the very first steps, but Pluto will bring the next huge waves, because it comes like, you know, just like the tides come in waves, the high tides. So wave after wave that goes deeper and deeper. The other huge waves that brought us, so the first huge wave that brought us deeper and deeper, the age of Aquarius started in 1914. You know what happened then? The First World War. The age, it's like always something huge happens when ages come in waves. So 1914 is when the teacher of the Light Brotherhood, who was incarnated at the time, said now is the time of the age of Aquarius. Now starts the dawn of the age of Aquarius, 1914. And he said, of course, there will be some big dark forces. I was trying to move the opposite. So he said, expect some big crisis. The First World War happened. Then the Second World War. So the age of Aquarius started with 2 world wars. Always big changes happen with really crazy stuff. And then we had another huge wave of the age of Aquarius in 2020 when Saturn and Jupiter conjuncted at 0 degrees Aquarius, the sign, ushering in the new Aquarian energy. You see what's happening with technology, revolutions, awakening massively, people becoming aware of so many things that they were not aware of. And now the next huge wave will be Saturn moving into Aquarius. So it's starting, guys, 2023. Let me just give you a little bit of a, Saturn in not Saturn, Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign of brotherhood. Of course, that's what we're going to do in the age of Aquarius. We'll all become equal. And over the next 2,000 years, we'll learn that everyone has equal rights. Everyone has freedom to choose for themselves. No one interferes in the lives of others. Everyone is sovereign. Everyone is self-responsible. And everyone lives in community, helping each other. And I did a big research on Aquarius energy and in the past. And there was always, when Aquarius was strongly emphasized, communities were formed. One of those communities was during the Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions in air signs that was created. And in Aquarius was the Cathars and the Bogomils, that they created the Renaissance, basically. They introduced the new revolutionary ideas of human rights, and women had equal rights, everyone could read and speak, they could all own land and so on. And they were all living in communities and helping each other and rejecting the church. They said God is direct experience. Pluto always makes huge reformations. Pluto in Aquarius. So I know that when Pluto, we all know, Pluto through the signs brings in new generations. Just like Pluto in Leo was the baby boomers generations, the rock and rollers. They created they were the flower kids, because when they grew up, this is when they created the freedom of love. Leo is love, free love, and this very colorful music and celebrity and rock and roll star culture. These were our wonderful baby boomers, Pluto and Leo generation. They probably have a lot of incarnations in fun places in previous lifetimes. So you see, Pluto shows when souls come in flocks, like whole generations come from similar background from previous lives areas. And the Pluto in we just were Pluto in Capricorn generation for the last 12 years that were being born. And we even did a research that energetically with quantum measurements, you can watch my videos with Elena and Alejandro about the different generations being born. The generations born in Pluto in Capricorn had the vibration of very ancient souls, because Capricorn is very ancient energy. They bring in a lot of ancient, a lot of the souls that incarnated in the last 12 years haven't incarnated in a long time. They come from long time ago, and they bring ancient knowledge. Now the humans that are going to start incarnating with Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years. By the way, Pluto spends the longest time in Aquarius, from one of the longest times in Aquarius. It's more and more longer. It was in Scorpio just 10 years, in Aquarius 20 years. Wow. So the generations that will start incarnating with Pluto in Aquarius, because Pluto rules the generations, will be, first of all, they're born with technology. I mean, they'll be able to program in their mother's belly, as they say, whatever. But they will be, Aquarius is connected to Atlantis. The Atlantean civilization started with one of the many long time ago previous ages of Aquarius, 26,000 years ago, 24. And as we saw, Atlantis became a highly technological culture. But they had a lot of freedom, and there was a lot of equality until the end, when the age of Aquarius, when Atlantis was destroyed because they abused the power of technology. And it happened during the age of Leo, 12,000 years ago, something like that. Well, I see and I feel it in my bones that a lot of souls they'll start descending like flocks here, connected to Atlantis, and they'll have their memories preserved, because Aquarius is the sign of kind of having clear sovereign, your memory is not being affected. So I think a lot of the child and the generation of Pluto in Aquarius that will be born will have clear memories of the past. They'll remember the mistakes made in Atlantis, because Aquarius is Atlantean energy. And they will, because Atlantis started during the age of Aquarius. So they'll come here because Atlantis was destroyed because of the mistakes that happened, not to allow these mistakes to happen, because they're experienced with technologies, and they know if you take the root of technology, dissociate it from heart and spirit, what happens is like the Greys. That's what the Greys did. They were beautiful creations. They chose artificially merging with technologies and so on, and they turned, and their genome started dying out. They have no feelings, no heart. You can watch Gigi, what's her name? She's great on YouTube. She describes those things amazingly, and she's also an anthroposophist, so she knows the esoteric history of humanity. Gigi Young, her channel. But we'll be on a big step now. It will be decided during Pluto in Aquarius. Are we going to take the path of dissociating from the heart, which is the opposite sign, and just using high intelligence technology, merging with technology to advance ourselves? But as I said, it leads to a dying out humanity in a few hundred or thousand years if we do that. That disconnects from its intuition, disconnects from the source. The source is always Leo. That was the first constellation created from the 12 signs. That's the ultimate creation impulse. So, or are we going to, the high vibration of Aquarius, once Pluto is in Aquarius, will be determined, are we going to take sovereignty? Each one is independent and sovereign. That's the highest vibration. And each one has independent thinking and thinks for themselves and learns about everything. Aquarius is very the energy of kind of the Renaissance man, let's say, encyclopedia, someone who knows a bit of everything, someone who knows everything. As any Aquarius, they think they know everything. And the ultimate mistake for people now will be to trust someone to arrange their life, will be to trust someone to tell them what to do, to tell them what is the truth. Aquarius needs to find for itself. Aquarius needs to study, to research. It needs to, it's knowledge. This is what Aquarius is, and being not only having this knowledge, but know how to apply it and what to do with it. So the biggest strength that you will have in the next 2,000 years, but starting in the next Pluto in Aquarius, is to learn and to know as much as possible, and to not to rely on someone else to tell you what, and to increase your higher education. By the way, let me go back. So yes, and this new people that come in the age of Aquarius, I know that there will be people not only from Atlantis, but people that were here in later times in communities, and especially during times when communities were allowed, like the Essenes. Again, the Essenes were created during Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions. They thrived the most during Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions in Aquarius and the air signs, which was 100 years before Christ, a couple of 100 years before Christ. The Essenes were here to prepare the coming of the Christ. The Christ came from the Essenes because they had to prepare the body of the mother and the father for generations before that to be pure, so a higher entity can enter with such a high vibration in the human body. So the Essenes, they lived incredibly connected, they lived incredibly interdependent, with freedom. Women were also equal rights. So they brought those ideas of brotherhood, equality, like the French Revolution theme, which was also very Aquarian, because Pluto was in Aquarius during the French Revolution. So it brought this Aquarian equality, brotherhood, freedom, equality, brotherhood. Now we're gonna get to apply this. So people that were here in such communities, they'll come to show us the way. They'll be born inside now, and they'll push their parents, and vibrationally, in the next 20 years, people will start living in communities of like-minded, not necessarily going somewhere in the desert to live, not necessarily hiding away from the rest of the world. They can form communities within communities. There might be online communities as well, but that are independent from the system. That's how Aquarius is. Aquarius kicks off the mainstream, creates a hub, and starts creating communities that spring everywhere. And the same is Aquarius energy was the Cathars and Albigenians and the Patharens, whatever, have different names around Europe. The Bogumils, they happened around 1,000 years ago, 800 years ago. And they started springing everywhere, and they lived without, they didn't think the church is necessary. They resurrected true Christianity, esoteric Christianity. They resurrected astrology. They resurrected true knowledge, and everyone was equal. Women were equal, and so on in those societies. So those people born then, and there were 50 million Cathars that were born over those 200 years of the Cathars, 300 years. 50 million, they're coming. Remember the prophecy of the last Cathar, the last perfect of the Cathars, who died in 1271 or whatever. No, 1371. And he said in exactly 700 years ago. And the church wrote these words, that's why we know them. He was the last high initiate of the Cathars, because the Cathars have direct connection. They could materialize, they could astral travel. All those esoteric side of spirituality, they were actively being taught. All the perfects, as they call them, how to do that, was something like a mystery school. So he said, he made a prophecy, now we'll die out, but we'll come back in 700 years and we'll never be extinguished, and we'll create the kingdom of God on earth. And that's exactly 700 years later, is exactly the year 2020, 21 onwards. So I think Pluto in Aquarius will escalate this process of those exalted souls and that lived in those societies, that felt what it is to have equal freedom, to be self-sustaining and independent. There was no hierarchy there to be controlled and told what to do. Everyone contributed equally. So these things are possible, but they never were able to continue to exist during the age of Pisces, because it was not the age of. There were small pockets of Aquarian energy in the last 2,100, 200 years, but they could never last long because it was the age of Pisces. And the age of Pisces was here to create the big religions and so on. And now it will be to connect humanity. And first they'll spring in little pockets of like-minded people, which this process started from 2020. Those people are coming more in throes and throes, and it will be fulfilled that those souls that lived in those societies will come. The Cathars, the Essenes are coming back. The Atlanteans that lived in such societies of freedom at the height of Atlantis, at the Aquarian time of the height, not at the fall, they're coming back, and they'll know what the difficulties as well if you divest from the heart, if you use too much technologies and so on, because the ultimate goal for humanity is to develop organically, and of course inorganically is to merge with technologies, which I think it's a big mistake, because if you can read, what happened to other alien nations that did this, they always now they're trying to resurrect their genome and their genes, but it's a dying out race. They disconnect from feelings, from heart, from source. Once you do that, it's entering some kind of your own. You disconnect from light and source, and your species starts dying out. There is no connection to joy, happiness. You become more and more robotic. Of course, as a promise first, those with Pluto in Aquarius, all those technologies will escalate over the next 10, 15 years. Like, people will start and I think some of them can be great. If you can't walk or whatever, technology can help you with something to walk. If you can't see, something stimulating your eye, like in Star Trek. That's what is coming with Pluto in Aquarius. I mean, many people that have serious problems with science will save them. But there is the dark side of the Pluto in Aquarius, and that will be revealed. The dark side of science, the dark side of inventions, the dark side of technology. We'll become more and more aware of it during this time. Just like Pluto in Aquarius revealed the dark underbelly of governments and organizations, and before that, Pluto in Sagittarius revealed the dark underbelly of religions, all the pedophile priests and so on. So Pluto in Scorpio was the first time when people started talking about sexual abuse and so on. So those always is wherever Pluto goes, it shows the dark side of those organizations of things, and Aquarius is science. So the monstrosities of science, and I'm sure there's been a lot happening already for the last 100 years, but they'll be revealed now, and they'll become public access, that people will realize about them, and there will be very important discussions collectively how the humanity will split in two, that are all for digitalization, robotization, while others will say, stop, look how dark it can all get. Let's use technology for the raising of our consciousness, for making life easier on humanity, for bringing equal access to resources to everyone, but not for control like they're trying to do. And the push to control humanity through digitalization will be huge. And especially the first 5 years of Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto will pass in the sign of Aquarius, but the constellation behind is the horn and the goat, the horns of the goat. So the next 3, 4, 5 years there will be, and the horns of the goat is the symbol of Baphomet. And in ancient astrology, this sector of the sky, we're talking the constellation behind the first degree of the sign of Aquarius. It's the goat horn, the horned goat, and it's connected to Satanism. It's connected to the occult. The occult doesn't have to be negative as well. It's connected to knowledge, high occult knowledge. It can be positive, but it can be also negative. That's why a lot of Satanist organizations, they have Saturn, symbol of the horned devil, the horned goat. So there will be strong occult impulses working in the next 5 years through this kernel of dark government or whatever you want to call it, Pluto, through the richest people in the world, with the people in the highest power, that they're already occult, they use such powers, but because Pluto is passing through that sector that is very occult, very powerful occult forces of dark and light will be employed through the sign that Pluto filters in. So the constellation is Capricorn. The reasons behind it are very occult. They're about control, of course, but it happens through the sign that Pluto filters through, and it's Aquarius, through digital technology, social reform, and of course Pluto in Aquarius will see the social credit system be implemented, where person Aquarius is society, participation in society. Pluto is being controlled on the base of your merit for that. That's the worst mistake people can do, but it's going there, but it will be short-lived. Don't worry, because all this thing will transpire in the next 20 years, and it will be destroyed within the time where they try and take control of humanity through digitalization, through technology, through surveillance of every step. Pluto is surveillance, Aquarius is of society, the big brother is Aquarius as well. And at the same time, this will self-destroy that system. And what will stay within 20 years is all those new technologies which will be used for better, which will be used for raising of consciousness. Because don't forget, Aquarius is the sign of consciousness. Actually, I did one powerful video about the esoteric history of humanity that stems back 2 billion years ago with the ages of astrology. And it turned out that every time the age of Aquarius came, and there are ages that last sometimes like 400,000 years in previous times and so on. But the Aquarius energy was always the time when the biggest jumps in consciousness happen. Because Aquarius symbolizes the perfect human form. Aquarius is the perfect human. Even the symbol of Aquarius is an angel pouring out knowledge, or not angel, but a human pouring out, it's not water sign, it's air sign, pouring out knowledge on humanity. That's why whenever Aquarius is strong, a lot of knowledge is given to humanity. That's why Prometheus, who gave knowledge to humanity, is Aquarius figure. So that's where a lot of pouring of knowledge and upgrading of consciousness happens. And of course, the perfect human form over the next 2,000 years will be developed, and we're starting this of the light humans. That will be a mixture. There'll be in between angels and humans, because of course the evolutionary goal is that we turn into angels, even higher than them, because nothing repeats in the same way. It takes a few thousand years more, maybe a few 50, 100,000 years we'll get there. I don't know. But some have already done that, the so-called saints and so on. But the race of the solar souls, and these are entities that developed a human evolution millions of years ago. The race of the solar sons and daughters. Let me just see. Atlantis starts with the age of Aquarius. I'm just reading to you what I've written about here in my from my esoteric research and so on. Atlantis starts with the age of Aquarius. Hyperborea, which is an ancient time, about a few million years before that. Hyperborea during the age of Aquarius is when the solar teachers achieve their perfection. The solar teachers are what we call now ascended masters. They are the consciousness of at the level of the Christ energy, when they completed their human evolution millions of years ago. That was again under the influence of Aquarius. While the seeds of the Lemurian race was also created in the sign of Aquarius. During ancient times, when Aquarius was prevalent for a few 100,000 years actually, because there are huge cycles and small cycles within them and huge cycles. So Aquarius, which forms and this is when the I starts coming, the individualization of the human. Again, during age of Aquarius it started, but Lemurian times, a few million years ago. We're talking a long time ago, but there it's always in cycles. Which forms human, completes or starts. So Aquarius always forms humans, or the perfected human form of something, of the previous entities that are now above human. They're the solar teachers, as we call them. So Aquarius always completes or starts human evolution. The biggest jumps in consciousness happen. And by the way, we're just starting this now, because we started the age of Aquarius, within it a small cycle of 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius. So the next 2,000 years, plus intensely the next 20 years, is when the perfect human form starts happening, more perfected human consciousness. So the biggest evolutionary jump will be happening in the next 20 years, and the next 2,000 years, let's say, but the first ones to jump in, the first huge awakening is gonna happen in the next 20 years of Pluto in Aquarius. And actually, this will be the sixth root race is when the age of Aquarius for the next 2,000 years, the sixth post-Atlantean age, This is when the roots of the sixth root race will be formed, which will be for 100,000 years after that. But it starts in the next 2,000 years in the age of Aquarius, and the seeds will be planted, and those human beings that are, and the whole humanity basically will turn to, they'll be called the race of solar sons and daughters, the human angels, the superhumans, the development of the seeds of the six big epochs starts in the age of Aquarius, and will become ubiquitous. Everyone will have access to this higher consciousness, which is between humans and angels, with the age of Sagittarius. But the seeds start in the age of Aquarius. So in about 4,000 years, almost everyone on Earth will be at that level, but the first souls are coming now. So huge evolutionary jump already starting in the next 20 years. And what is Pluto? Pluto is the genetics, the genome, the DNA. So we can upgrade the DNA already. They started doing it with the vaccines. They said it changes the DNA and so on. They're doing it in non-natural ways, but there will be people that prefer to do it this way. They'll prefer to change their DNA, which is Pluto, and Aquarius is people as well, and consciousness, by merging with machines, whatever, but that's not the organic way, and that does not give the ultimate results. You can't move beyond that. Okay, you can merge with machines and have access to all data information, but you don't have access to all the cosmic knowledge and information, just to what's human around, what the Wi-Fi can give you. While many people will start, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, naturally upgrading their DNA to a higher vibration. This is something I'm super excited about, because as I said, always during Aquarius periods, the biggest upgrade of consciousness happens, the biggest realizations in society and humanity as a whole, because vibration rises. And actually we measure the vibration when Pluto is at the last degrees of Aquarius before it leaves in 2044-45 is when humanity jumps into really high vibrations of love. And currently we're at vibration of fear at 135, 145, and love is 500. So the next 20 years we gradually start rising. We checked it with quantum technology, checked the videos with Elena and Alejandro. They're scientists, they're not mystics. They used quantum technology to measure future past events and everything. So they said something is happening in the next 20 years where consciousness jumps so much, and I know what is happening. Pluto in Aquarius, the upgrade, and they said that the very end is when consciousness jumps the most. That's why I told you usually the big gift is when a planet moves from the sign at the end. That's why I think huge event will happen in governments and people in power and in authority when Pluto moves into Capricorn for the last time in 2023. But huge upgrade of the consciousness of humans, and a lot of you will do it organically. And I advise you, I can't tell you what to do, but choose the organic way. The upgrade is much higher than the inorganic way, because the inorganic way has its limitations and puts you in almost a kind of a slavery. So just warning you here. So that's with merging with machines and whatnot, But because there'll be natural sources of consciousness arising, and there is a saying that the Christ impulse, not saying, but all highest initiates of esoteric Christianity know that Christ is not coming back in physical form. The Christ energy has been here for 2000 years, since it's merged with the aura of the earth after the Christed being physical form died, and the spirit of the Christ merged with the earth and became the spirit of the earth. And the spirit is awakening because of this highly vibrational, the Christ spirit was a spirit of the sun, and it came and it merged with the earth. So gradually, for the last 2000 years, consciousness of humanity has been gradually rising with each next incarnation. Each next incarnation, a little bit more of the solar impulse of the Christ energy is there, which is now merged with the earth, and the earth is awakening because of that. The spirit of the earth is the Christ consciousness now. But it takes thousands of years for this, for us to become Christed beings, solar beings, a few 100,000 maybe, but we're in the starting process. Some people do it very fast, yogis, masters, saints, but now it'll be like a very big surge of people being able to reach higher and higher stage of consciousness, of states of unity. States of consciousness is when you're kind of in a bliss, higher state of consciousness, when you can see things in the future, where you know things, where no one can lie to you. There are many, many levels you can rise it up. So, what was I talking about? So yes, so we're going to rise to a higher vibration. And as I said, it's going to happen, and it's going to be happening gradually with each incarnation. But now there will be, for a lot of people's awakening, when people is in Aquarius, actually like update of the DNA, because Aquarius also rules, the sign is like that. So Aquarius rules all kind of radiations, cosmic or earthly radiations. First of all, they would increase with 5G or whatever the radiations that we created. They will be very intense. There is no escaping it. But at the same time, the Aquarius energy says that there will be very powerful cosmic vibrations that we're attuned to, that we can align. Aquarius rules, there's like highways that are crisscrossing the whole of the universe, and that the information channels, that's what Aquarius is, the information channels, just like the Wi-Fi sends us information channels. And the evolution of consciousness is aligning and opening and starting to decipher those information channels. So someone who thinks about science or music all the time, they're on that vibration, and suddenly they start hearing music like Beethoven, and they say, well, how did you write that? He says, I didn't write it. It's like I clicked into some channel and it's coming to me. So everything that's ever existed and will exist in those channels of informations that are everywhere. You see, I'm Aquarian. Aquarius rising, because I know so many things that will probably not be useful to anyone, but I know them. That are just curiosities. Anyway, so those channels, what will happening now is that Aquarius also rules the nervous system. The nervous system will have an evolutionary jump while Pluto is in Aquarius. That's why I see a lot of nervous condition intensifying, because the process of preparing the nervous system for this is refining it, making it more sensitive. And of course, it becomes way more sensitive to harsher things around and vibrations. So that will be a huge part. Such symptoms like the nervous system is, you think you're going a bit crazy, you think it's like, everything, but because you are honing your nervous system to connect to those invisible, natural highways of information that are crisscrossing. Some also calls them the Akashic and whatever. So you'll see a lot of people starting to receive information, like intuitively. They won't know, they'll just know. How do you know it? I know it. There's no logical reason, but I just know things. Telepathy is Aquarius. Aquarius rules telepathy, forming a channel of communication with someone. That will start happening huge. I think it will be introduced into education very soon as well, the connection of consciousness with the sources of information and how to access it. There will be a huge change of the whole educational system while Pluto is in Aquarius, mark my words, because the previous time when Pluto was in Aquarius, in 1141 to 1163 and 1286 to 1308, first universities started springing up in Europe. And the first actually were in the Arab countries from the previous time Pluto was in Aquarius, from 690 something, 795. But in Europe, the first university 1532, 1553. And in America, the first university also was the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, which was in 17 something. So education will be transformed in a powerful way, in a good way as well, because Pluto is making trines to Gemini, to Libra, which is again about knowledge. And Jupiter and Pluto, wow, it's in Aquarius, will make a trine to Uranus in Gemini in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So there will be incredible and very positive and smooth revolution in education that will free the kids and people to study things that they want, that are authentic to them, that they're natural, truly God-given gifts for them, that they have to stress on. And education will be not so much like, this is what you have to study, go here. And like, that's more like, going through the machine and coming out like Pink Floyd, they all come the same out. No, Pluto in Aquarius will restructure education while empowering people to know the things that are important for them, not according to what a system tells them. So in the next 20 years, this will happen. It's happening already, in discovering the natural, innate curiosity in people rather than suppressing it. So I see a huge revolution in education. There might be some crisis situation there, but ultimately it will be very good. Then another thing I noticed when Pluto was in Aquarius, for example, in the 60 AD, persecutions by Nero, who killed the Christians. Then 305 to 329, the next Pluto in Aquarius, the great persecutions of Christians from 203 to 313, destruction of early Christians. Again, it's like persecutions. There's something about persecutions when Pluto is in Aquarius. Aquarius rules groups of people combined by their beliefs or combined by certain ideology of some sort. So Pluto is to persecute, to destroy. So they're always, and as I said, but also there will be a birth of a lot of communities, because this generation of people is coming back that are part of big communities, that are part of self-governing and self-sustaining communities like the Cathars, the Essenes, the Atlanteans before that. And they are coming back, and a lot of them are around here already, and they'll start creating those communities during Pluto in Aquarius. They don't necessarily have to be, as I said, like separated from the world with a wall, but there will be very distinct communities within communities and so on. Some of them might be actual communities outside of mainstream societies and smart cities. Smart cities are coming, guys, whether you want it or not. Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius is the big settlements. Pluto is so you can control people. But again, as I say, this thing will not last for long, because that's not the evolutionary path. The evolutionary path is self-government, not centralization. What they're trying to do. It's the opposite of Aquarius. Centralization is having a center like the heart where one rules from there, what they're trying to do. We're in the age of Aquarius, guys. It's not gonna happen. We're in the age of self-governing small units. Every cell is as important in the other, but every cell is in communication with the other cells. But every cell communicates with the other cells, and every cell is independent for itself. You see, and there is no middle. There is not one in the middle who tells everyone what to do. That's what they're trying to do. Yes, globalism will happen for a little bit, maybe a few years, but then it goes against the evolutionary impulse. You can't go against time. You can't go against God. I mean, God is the stars, the constellation. They say this is the age of Aquarius. Humans have to become independent. Humans have to rule their life. Humans they make their own decisions in the next. And they're equal. There's no hierarchies. Someone tells the other what to do. They'll try to do it. Always the regressionary impulse tries to do the opposite of the evolutionary impulse. We call them black brotherhood. We're not talking skin color. We're talking the intentions, the regressive energy. They're very occult, high society people, very intelligent, very highly developed people, but they work for the opposite principle. And God, God agrees on that. God says we have to have evolutionary and regressive impulse. That's how, otherwise they kind of hold each other. The game between light and dark, it's all, as I said, God uses lemons to make lemonade. from everything turns it for good. So, oops. What was I talking about? Oh yes, so I was talking that there might be persecutions of groups of people for their ideologies, for their and people that especially are not mainstream, that are resisting. Aquarius is very much about someone who says it's like underground trends. Aquarius is very much about something that is cutting edge, something that is not mainstream, away from the mainstream. So people start making such economic system. Aquarius rules economic, of changing of goods. They'll develop such kind of new money as well to change that they're independent of the system. While the system is, Pluto in Aquarius, two sides. System is trying to control you through technology, to control every move of everyone in society. Pluto to control Aquarius in society through technology. While at the same time, the other vibration of Pluto is underground organizations, or kind of fringe, let's call fringe organizations and groups of like-minded people connecting and creating other systems outside of the system that rebels. But they'll be persecuted, they'll have to hide, don't worry, they always make it. Christian, in the age of Aquarius, in the age of Pisces, those organizations, survived for so long, such kind of outliers. Now in the age of Aquarius, they're not going to be distinguished, they'll be persecuted, but they'll take over, and the whole world they'll bring this new pattern to the whole world within the next 20 years. So those big plans of control of the world, that a few families on the top give through non-elected government, they tell all the world what to do, that's their wet dreams, but it's not happening, it's happening just for a few years, maybe for 4 or 5 years. So we can see what it is and see, no, we don't want that. And it's not sustainable in the age of Aquarius. Everyone will be governing themselves according to their own interest, like I said. But there will be some persecutions. Then there might be persecutions of Christians as well, faith or whatever. There is also another thing that I saw, huge scientific advances. Of course, Copernicus, when Saturn was Pluto is in Aquarius in 1977, in 1777, 1797, Copernicus found the Earth is circular, not flat. Now something huge will be discovered. Maybe that the Earth is flat again, I don't know. No, I'm kidding, but something huge. Maybe that there is a second sun, maybe that there is other dimensions, and something on the quantum, something, such an incredible jump in some, that it totally changes your perception of reality, just like finding that the Earth was circular, not flat did. Such huge change on society. And I think that there will be maybe the first technological advances to connect us to the dead ones. Not dead, they're the more alive ones. They're actually way more alive there than we're here, but to connect us to the invisible realms. I think they're already such. CERN, one of the main reasons of CERN in Switzerland is not just to crash atoms together to contact other dimensions. That's what many scientists from there have leaked information, that they're contacting entities from other dimensions and so on. Guess what kind of entities they're contacting, maybe more on the dark side. But there is a way to, I think that there will be fine ways for us to contact the other side. There will be some other technologies that look for us like impossible, that are connecting us to something very taboo, very quantum, very forbidden on the microcosmos. So I'm really expecting some huge advancements in that. Of course, as I said, there will be, science can do some great stuff, but some horrific stuff that we'll witness and that we'll become aware of, and that we'll be asked to be accountable about, and hopefully learn our lesson this time. As we measured with quantum technology, we're not going to make the mistakes of the Atlanteans. We're not going to destroy ourselves through the technology. Last time we did. And instead of God allowing for humans to continue merging with technology, it's like the whole earth shook and destroyed. not only Earth, but the floods happened, the civilization was destroyed, so we don't become like the Greys, I'm going a bit too crazy this time. I just wanted to make it more fun for you guys. But this time we overcome this pull to just move into the brain and machinery and so on. We stay connected to the heart and we use it for evolution of consciousness. We're not going to be allowed to do that. All right. There's other persecutions. The Jews were persecuted last time Pluto was in Aquarius, one of the last times, from 1286 to 1303. King Edward I expelled all Jews from society. The crushing of the last Cathars happened. Again, there was some persecution of society, of people that thought or looked differently. I expect something like that to be happening. But again, this time, those fringe societies, they destroy the existing system. We're in the age of Aquarius now. They're not going to be crushed. They overflow and they take over the whole world with their ideologies within the next 20 years, despite of the persecutions. Of course, the biggest thing is, let's focus on the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. It was about 250 years ago. That was when the French Revolution happened. Someone that goes against the mainstream. Someone that says, no, this is not true. You can't connect to God only through the priest or through the Pope. You can connect individually, So huge jumps in consciousness. The American Revolution happened. The toppling of whole old system. Aquarius is all about rebellion. Aquarius is all about revolution. It's not going to be peaceful, guys. It's going to be on fire. I'm thinking that already next year something can happen, because we have, and in 2024, because we have a lot of Aries energy. But that will be a battle that is, because Jupiter is in Aries. Aries is war. North Node is in Aries. So there can be the escalation of very warlike impulses. But some of those wars will be very noble, let's say, or fighting for something noble, because Jupiter in Aries fights for something they believe, like, more nobly. But I see it already from 2023, revolution, protest. It will be so unpredictable, and especially because governments, they like Capricornian energy. Old forces want to control, want stability. Well, Aquarius energy, and always the Pluto is the most important planet of all. Wherever Pluto moves, all the other planets work for it. All the other cycles work through it. It's the planet of evolution, Pluto. It's the last planet of the solar system. It sublimates and culminates all the other influences of the other planets through the sign it's passing. So we're talking towards the freeing of humanity in the next 20 years from the old forces. And the freeing of knowledge, the independence, the self-sovereignty, the right to be self-sovereign. The formation of communities that help each other. Everything sublimates through that. All other transits and aspects will be serving that. But of course, Aquarius is the most unpredictable sign, because there's sudden viral trends that happen. That information's like fire, it can burn everything. It spreads so fast. So governments trying to control people, good luck. I mean, they will for a bit. That's with digital stuff, and so on. But it's like trying to keep from a dam that's breaking a little bit more and more, because they'll be just suddenly they patch up one hole of the control and something else bursts on the other side, because Aquarius information, especially that is forbidden, Pluto, that shows dark things, spreads out so fast, that shows the underbelly of those things, spreads so fast. Awareness is so powerful of people. This, as I said, there's quantum jump of awareness. And the genome, the genetics are changing. Pluto in Aquarius will change the genes of people. For some naturally, from some artificially, that allow themselves some genomic, like they're saying a lot of those mRNA injections will become for everything now. So be careful, because it can change genetically your genes. But it will happen naturally as well. Pluto is DNA, don't worry, big evolution there. And as I said, the awakening of consciousness, higher dimensions. But there will be such huge awakening that revolutions around and weather will become more unpredictable, even more. Because Aquarius things change very fast. It might be controlled in some way because Pluto is involved. There might be some manipulation, but even normal natural weather, it will become, first of all, maybe a bit air in astrology. Air rules is warm, in quality, and wet. I'm not sure if it will become warmer and wetter. It's sanguinistic, the air quality, but the weather will change faster, from 20 degrees one day or 70 degrees one day, next day 40 degrees. So like very sudden shifts, and Uranus will rule something that spins you suddenly, tornadoes and such, shakes you. Of course, Aquarius is to shake things. There can be some cataclysms of Pluto in Aquarius, and I'm talking shifting of that dislocate whole countries and people, that dislocate whole societies, if not even continents. I don't want to be so grim, but there is a lot of prophecies, and that they're aligning to that, but it's like the earth might shake, the weather changing so much. And that's the collective consciousness is awakening those things, Aquarius. And it creates, and it's ultimately it will be for our highest good. But one last thing I want to warn you, Aquarius is demographics and number of people. You saw how Saturn in Aquarius rolls the death rate a little bit with 20% in the most developed countries. 20% is not little. Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius, I think there will be such a decrease in number of people on the human. They're saying we're going to be 9 billion soon. I think we're not going to reach that. I think they'll be turning around, and the number of people over the next 20 years will decrease a lot. First of all, Aquarius is number of people, demographics, society. Pluto is the planet of death, but en masse. Like, I don't know what will cause it. I don't want to scare you. The souls, when they live en masse, they choose to do it, and they'll come back again after that with better conditions. Maybe I'll be one of them. My ascendant is Aquarius, so maybe I'll be one of the first ones to leave in the next few years. But there is something like a reduction of the population. Pluto rules the 10th house from Aquarius. It might be connected to those in power somehow. Oh, God's will. God's will is also the 10th house, but also somehow controlled by someone on top. But there is like a big exodus, guys, that I see. And control of the demographics. Of course, Aquarius population, Pluto can help control the number of people and population. So Aquarius is very much about independence. People would want to be independent. And I don't see for the next 20 years people being able to, as I said, for a long time to have one world government. There will be a push towards independence for more local, controlled, for more local interests and sovereign decisions. Of course, America became independent during that. There is a possibility that there might be some kind of independence happening as well from separation, of the states, for example, into ones that are, that they have very different views from each other. So decentralization will happen as groups and communities reassert and reclaim power, linking up in networks to share resources. Cooperatives, group sharings, these will be big. If you're in cooperatives and group sharings, these will be making more and more money. Pluto will make trines to Gemini and Libra, the other air signs, which are also about transportation. There will be a huge transformation of transport in a good way as well over the next 20 years. Aquarius is aviation. I think there will be really huge strides in aviation with flying, transforming it in some way. It's big change. There might be first some big crisis that starts happening in aviation. Then the aviation transportation is changed, but it's making trying to Gemini trains, Libra bridges, and so on. There'll be a huge building of such. Maybe there'll be a lot more emphasis on trains, and infrastructure will be changed the next 20 years. It's huge for transportations in a good way as well. Will be changed through new technologies, because it's all happening in Aquarius. What can suffer is the opposite sign, Leo, which is the celebrity culture, so kind of a elitist and glamorous things a little bit. No, also entertainment industry will be transformed in a big way. Of course, as we saw during Pluto in Capricorn, the people in biggest power usually are of the sign that Pluto is transiting in. So while Pluto was in Capricorn, we saw the rise of very big prominent figures in control who are Capricornian. Jeff Bezos, for example, when Pluto transited exactly over his sun in Capricorn, Amazon exploded in 2020. He took way more power than before. So now, over the next 2-3 years, the people in power will change. Also, other people that had strong Capricorn energy during the age of Pluto in Aquarius, in Capricorn, were, for example, Justin Trudeau, who was Capricorn, Marcon, who was the latest degrees of Capricorn, Jeff Bezos. But those players will be changed with more Aquarian players, so watch out who has strong Aquarius placements in their horoscopes over the next 20 years. They can be the biggest prominent players around. Of course, we have to be careful the age of the digital dictatorship. We'll try it. There is no escaping it through the social credit system and so on. But it's self-destructive in its own. Whatever Pluto does, when it takes too much control and when it's not using the highest good for everyone involved, it self-destroys at the end. So we'll see the rise and the fall of this globalism wet dream over the next 20 years. So, they must love me. They'll send me from space a laser to destroy me. I'm kidding, but who knows? I'm so paranoid. I am very Plutonian. Okay, the value of human life after some initial maybe loss of human lives will be reassessed as well, and will move more towards equality, freedom, and independence. That's what everyone needs. A great awakening and great natural or non-natural upgrade of the genome and the genetics and the consciousness of people during that time. Of course, Victor also said huge change of the internet. Of course, it's Aquarius, that will happen. I have so many more things to say, but I think I'm making it too long, so I'll make a special video about Pluto in Aquarius, or maybe a course in a couple of months that will speak how it will influence each of the 12 signs and the whole world generally. But we'll discover the dirt side of Aquarius and we'll transform the scientific side and so on. So it's not so destructive and used for wars and used for manipulation only. But first this will escalate. So we need to see the really dark manifestations of it first. So we then say enough is enough. So what else is happening? The nodes are changing signs. Actually till July, they're still in Scorpio. The south node is in Scorpio, the north node is in Taurus. Remember what I told you? Maybe I'll put an expert of the video when it all started, that in 2022 and 2023 there will be big inflation of prices, because wherever the north node goes, and Taurus is money, it inflates there. So I said prices, and especially of all materials, all things that we need, food and everything that is of essential necessity, Taurus, and everything from above the ground will have a lot of high prices. Because the north node expands, this continues in 2022, the prices will continue growing, and of materials and so on, and essential such kind of stuff. While I said when south node moves somewhere, it creates a crisis in that area. And Scorpio rules everything that comes from under the ground, petrol, gas. So I said there'll be some crisis there. And people will start moving away from those because of some crisis happening. Well, their price hasn't fallen down. What will happen is we have a petrol crisis, gas prices. Exactly like what I said before it all started. Because when you know the symbology of Scorpio, it's weakening, and it continues. Like, it will be harder to have access to gas and such things. And the whole next year, 2023, because the eclipses continue till November around that time, next in 2023 in Scorpio and Taurus. So we still have more of that. Plus, South Node weakens and creates crisis, weakened and created a crisis in the insurance companies in 2022, and it continues in 2023. But they're having way more claims for deaths and injuries, obviously. That's why a lot of insurance companies, they said like it's jumped 500% or something. I'm not sure what percentage. They said it's unprecedented. They say they don't know what, even in the middle of war, this doesn't happen. Banking, it continues. There will be a possibly, the whole next year is very dangerous still for a big financial crash because of the influence of, and big changing of the finances and restructuring. Plus the North Node is in the sign of money. It will meet Jupiter there around June. I see that, and I told you, when the North Node enters into Taurus in 2022, we'll start the push for digitalization, central digital currency, whatever. They will do it. They will do it for now, but there will be alternative ones that are decentralized. There will be always a way out, and I think one of those decentralized alternative ways will be created while Jupiter is in Taurus from May onwards 2023 till the middle of 2024. So Jupiter always gives freedom to the people and alternatives for people that are looking and ways for to make them freer. So Jupiter will allow, when it's with the North Node is, to progressive, something new, to develop also alternative methods to those central digital currencies, which can be used for a lot of control. And by the way, when Saturn moves in Taurus in around 5 years from now, this is when money will be probably abolished. There will be some big change. But first, the digital currencies are coming, and probably the centralized one, when Jupiter is with the North Node, a big advance. And it will happen without resistance, but something big will happen in the financial system. I don't know if it's a huge crisis or whatever, that introduces the financial, that introduces the new money. Jupiter with North Node in Taurus, the sign of money. North Node innovations. Jupiter, it happens easy, fast, everywhere, and it's accepted and so on. But as I said, new developments also that for the less mainstream and client ones that can use it as well will be developed, so people will not be left without, God never leaves people without a way out. And for now, for the few years ahead, you can use both currencies, normal money and the other ones, until Saturn moves into Taurus. Then it's questionable if you can do that at all anymore. But for now it will happen. I see the green light, and for that, and moving ahead. And believe me, yes, digital currencies might feel but there will be ways that you're not only enslaved by those. It might be very helpful for many people as well, because Jupiter, it indicates that there will be something good that we can get from that. If it's allowed, we have something to learn, something good from that. But the nodes will change signs. The North Node will come into Aries, and the South Node will come into Libra from July the 17th, and will stay there till 2026. So for 18 months, even though the eclipses will continue on the Taurus Scorpio line, transforming the finances, the banking system, the money system, and making it still very shaky. But there'll be a lot more focus then on peace and war. I don't think wars are finishing anytime soon. I think there might be other wars. If it's not the same war, some other wars situation might be escalating. But the last time the North Node, one of the last times I checked, in Aries was when the Vietnam War was raging. By the way, we have a great video of North Node and South Node in Aries and Libra made by Zuzana in the marathon. Please check it out. She's so in-depth and she talks about the 12 signs, how it will affect you in the world. But the war in Vietnam was raging around that time, but there were a lot of protests for peace as well. So we'll see that. Wars exploding here and there, maybe some more serious ones. There can be escalations, but there will be also people protesting more and more for peace. Another thing that we saw with Aries North Node is we're going to see the heavy industries, a big change in the heavy industries, who also create guns and so on, manufacture, but all heavy industries, like, I don't know, manufacture of automobiles and so on. There will be, the North Node in Aries will grow such things, but maybe like change them in different countries from where they've been till now, redirect them, because Rahu always introduces something new and some innovations and grows that business. Sorry, I'm getting very tired, guys. But okay, let's stop at that. I think that's enough for 2023. You see so many things. And there will be a lot of new startups with the North Node in Aries. So if you want to start a business, that's a great next year to do that. The North Node in Aries and into 2024 will give you this push forward. But I gave you so much information, I don't want to overwhelm you. This video, come back to it in the next 4, 5, 10 years as well, because there's just so much you can read about. And the industries that will thrive, of course, we can see by Aries will thrive industries, North Node in Aries and Jupiter, and as I said, this can be in industrial, startups, innovations, technologies, of course, Aquarius, Pisces in Aquarius, higher knowledge, higher education, and trining. Pluto is trining Gemini and Libra for the next 8 years. Anything with transportation, with knowledge, with learning, with communications, with technologies as well. And Pluto is going to put pressure on Taurus and Scorpio over the next 20 years. The banking system will be under pressure a lot. Agriculture and so on, big transformations that are not so easy on those systems. Huge changes coming from next year. Thank you so much. If you want to know about how specifically each of those moves will affect you, check out my 12 signs. A video of 3 hours almost for each sign. And also my calendar for 2023, where I speak about each, it's electronic calendar, it's 118 pages. Each day, every astrological event, planets making aspects, planets, new moons, full moons, with descriptions of what it means and how it will affect you personally, and suggestions what to do and what not to do. It's electronic and it's interactive, so you click on whatever day you want and you read for everything about this day and the astrological influences. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. May you be blessed.